CODCO principal Kalonzo Musyoka earlier this week revealed that the CODE coalition was working on a consensus to avoid a fallout and was even considering registering it as a political party. And so we're having a conversation with Charles Wafula, who is a political analyst. I'm seeing quite a number of your tweets already coming in. Join in on the conversation and I'll be taking a look at them. All right, so I think the question is, would CODE do well? What's the difference, with it being a coalition and a party?
Okay, so one of the things they need to seriously think about is political parties' funding, all right? Because the Political Parties Act says that, Betty, the party that gets a minimum of 5% of the total votes. So what happens is that they will compute the total number of votes that your presidential candidate has gotten and the governors and senators and MPs and MCAs under your party. And if it's more than 5% of the total votes cast, then you will qualify to get funding. By registering a fourth entity, essentially, besides ODM, Wiper, and Ford Kenya, is that they then split that up, which presents the potential of them falling beneath that particular threshold. Yeah, so hopefully they'll think about that as they try to come up with this option. However, I must also hasten to add that in a sense, it broadens the opportunity for, a fallback position for those who would feel maybe they do not have a particular ticket, they can always go back. Unlike, say, Jubilee, whereby it's just locked down.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking politically, I'd like you to explain to us, what benefits are there, not even the funding and everything like you mentioned, but also politically, even for the aspirants, does it give them an edge if this is registered as a party?
It will only give an edge to candidates who are already popular.
Who are already popular?
Yes, already popular in areas whereby CODE has got a greater traction. All right? And what that means is that, for instance, if you go to Kambani, it's highly likely the people who will carry the CODE flag going into the election for different positions will primarily be those probably from the Wiper end. All right? Because, something like Ford Kenya doesn't have any traction in, say, Ukambani.
Yes.
So that I think will be the matrix there. However, it will be risky for those who are not popular and who decide to vie on this particular ticket of CODE, because what that means is that there's potential of them being locked out. And but we need to quickly remember what the Election Amendment Act says, that parties need to present the list of their members who will be vying for the nomination of the particular parties 21 days to the date when IBC has declared that will be the nomination day. Which means if you contest on, say, for instance, if you're a member of Ford Kenya and you decide that you want to vie on CODE, if you lose, you can go back. All right, so that it's dicey, and I think it's something that needs individuals who are planning to vie on that to think through carefully and either decide not to walk down that path or just stay within their particular affiliate parties.
All right. So now looking at the coalition as it is right now, Wiper and of course Ford Kenya, what are we likely to see? What are the two going to offer Raila Odinga, and who's likely to be the running mate?
Okay, so good question, Betty. One, Raila Odinga has always changed running mates every single election.
Yes.
All right? Which means Kalonzo needs to think about this very deeply, whether he's going to be the running mate or not. So that's one. Two, especially for Wetangula, there's a sense in which Honorable Raila can still gain traction in his backyard without his endorsement. So that makes things very difficult for him. And like, say, Honorable Kalonzo, whom in a sense has got that locked down. However, if you look at the three coalition partners, it's only Honorable Raila who doesn't have an alternative center of power from his backyard. But Kalonzo, I'm sure if he bolted out, you cannot rule out the fact that Raila Odinga would quickly reach out to, say, Ngilu, or even Alfred Mutua, who knows, and try to cut a deal with him. So that makes things very difficult for Honorable Kalonzo and Honorable Wetangula. And
let me stop you there. For Kalonzo, because, as late as Friday, there was that Kamba, Elders Council, which came out and said that, they do not want to associate themselves anymore with Wiper. Also, of course, that giving Wiper some sort of beating, especially when it comes to the support that they've always considered, that part, that region to be their stronghold.
Yeah, well, so one thing, of course, that takes away some level of credibility from Kalonzo. However, I don't think so much. If you go to the grassroots, I guess Kalonzo is still the go-to person if you want to cut that voting block. However, of course, that bit also introduces a very interesting dimension in Kenya's politics, because then there's this growing sense of what we call guided democracy, whereby supposed elders can sit somewhere and decide we're endorsing Betty Chalo, so the rest of you can take a walk. But that notwithstanding, we've also seen other people play smarter politics by also sponsoring their own elders. You also sponsor your own council of elders who endorse you, all right?
Okay, so interesting, developments there. But also, like I mentioned, the running mate issue.
Yes.
He's really, it's like CORD is really or ODM or Raila Odinga is keeping the cards really close to his chest. What are we likely to see? Who is that person going to be? And also, with Musalia Mudavadi, is that also another option of a person who would strongly contend with him?
Difficult question, and I guess that's the make or break of this deal. Why? Because as I mentioned earlier on, Kalonzo has been away from this ticket for 10 years. He would want to vie again. Number two, Honorable Wetangula has never vied, so
but does Kalonzo really think that he can, even with his absence really from, very crucial or national politics as you'd see it, does he really think he'd stand a chance?
Well, so this thing will depend with the number of people whom he can rally behind himself, because then what happens is that there's this Machiavellian approach to politics whereby we have provincial chiefs who, if they back you, then the voting bloc also backs you. So yes, he could still rally support across the country, and that's why you've seen, I think, especially him and Honorable Wetangula and also Honorable Mudavadi just sitting back and saying, we want to be endorsed, which I don't think is a really good way of approaching politics. But then going back, Betty, to your question about running mate, I guess the difficulty there would be how they, within the coalition, manage the whole issue of how to choose the flag bearer, which in most cases would mean that the person who emerges second, if say it's going the delegate's way, would then be the automatic running mate. Yeah.
All right. Let's also talk about, what came out yesterday with ODM, moving to start the process of expelling some of the defectors. What is your feeling on that? Is this something that they're likely to push through? I mean, considering that elections are just around the corner.
Okay, so that's an interesting issue. Why? Because there are multiple institutions which play a role in kicking out a member of parliament, which is beyond ODM. The Office of the Registrar of Political Parties plays a role, IBC plays a role, the speakers of both houses play a role, and also, of course, the county assemblies. So which means that how quickly this process moves is beyond the reach of ODM as a party. Two more things. One, Betty, I feel that if they were successful, this would create a very interesting mini general election. It will sort of more or less be like a referendum, and that would be quite an interesting bit. However, I doubt it will happen. I guess for ODM, they're just doing this for nuisance value. Okay. So you keep people who are rebellious busy with other things, as probably try to then raise other people to vie against them in the backyards.
So it could be strategic.
Yeah, it's strategic, just really for nuisance value. But I honestly don't think they will pull through.
But also, finally, I mean, with the people who have expressed interest in other parties, but still are members of parties like ODM, why is that? Why is there reluctance to resign from the original party?
Your guess is as good as mine, Betty. One, loss of income, two, risk of not being re-elected, and three, also just looking at the fact that the next elections are just 11 months down the road. Nobody would want to go through this process twice within a very short time.
Okay.
So everybody would be hesitant.
Exactly.
And I think really we must also know the fact that from history, it's only Honorable Raila who once resigned in 1996 when he left Ford Kenya and went to NDP and vied and won.
But what does the law says? What is supposed to happen? If you already show interest in another party, shouldn't you relinquish, any interest in another party?
Absolutely. So that's what the law says. However, now what's happening is that they've also shown interest in the ruling party, in a sense, and the ruling party would also want to do everything in their power to protect the newbies, the new kids on the block. So really, this is going to be a very grueling process for ODM to push it through.
All right. right. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Charles Wafula, for your insights. Very
Most
interesting
welcome. Thanks.
conversation there. And of course, we wait and see what's going to be happening. It's going to be a very interesting couple of months to the elections. All right.